All right, good evening, everyone. Let's have a reader read for us Joshua 10, 12 through 14. Joshua 10, 12 through 14.
Then Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. He said in the sight of Israel, "Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Ajalon." So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, to the people have revenge upon their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and did not hasten to go down for about a whole day. There has been no day like that, before it or after it. The Lord heeded the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. That's the New King James Version.
Thanks. And one more reader. We have another reader.
Then Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the sons of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, O sun, stand still at Gibeon, and O moon in the valley of Ajalon. So the sun stood still and the moon stopped, until the nation avenged themselves on the enemies. Is it not written in the book of Joshua? And the sun stopped in the middle of the sky and did not hasten to go down for a whole day. There was no day like that before it or after it, when the Lord listened to the voice of man, for the Lord fought for Israel.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to read a couple of verses as backdrop for us so that we can get an understanding of what's happening. Let's look at Joshua 10:1. Now it came to pass when Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, heard how Joshua had taken Ai and had utterly destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho and its king, so he had done to Ai and its king, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were among them, that they feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, like one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all its men were mighty. One thing to note is Jerusalem as the city, did it exist before the children of Israel got there? Did Jerusalem as a city exist before the children of Israel got there? No? Yes, it did. What does verse 1 say? I just read that. Is Adoni-Zedek Israelite? You ever heard of him? No, right? Never heard of him because he's not an Israelite. So Jerusalem as a city already existed. Remember, where they're going, did God create a Garden of Eden for them to go to? No. They're going to a place that already has people, right? So Israel got there. Anyway, because of what they had done to Ai and Gibeon, or in Jericho, sorry, this king called on some help because he heard the Israelites were coming. Verse 3, therefore Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, sent to Hoam, king of Hebron, Param, king of Jermoth, Japhia, king of Lisha, and Deborah, king of Eglon, saying, come up to me and help me, that we may attack Gibeon, for it has made peace with Joshua and with the children of Israel. Therefore 5 kings of Amorites, king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jermuth, the king of Jashish, the king of Eglon, gathered together and went up, and they and all their army camped before Gibeon. And then the men of Gibeon sent to Joshua at the camp of Gilgal, saying, do not forsake your servant. Come up to us quickly, save us and help us, for all the kings of the Amorites who dwell in the mountains have gathered together against us. So Joshua ascended from Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him, and all the mighty men of valor. The Lord said to Joshua, do not fear them, for I have delivered them into your hand. Not a man of them shall stand before you. Verse 8, God said he has delivered them in the past, present, or future tense. for those who know English grammar. God's sentence is in the past, present, or future tense in verse 8. He says, I have delivered, ED, right? Already, right? Past. I've already delivered. But has the battle started yet? So God live outside of time. When you go to him in prayer and he answer yes, no, or later, he's answering in as if it already happened, right? So we'll get to that in a second. Verse 9, Joshua therefore came upon them suddenly, having marched all night from Gilgal. So the Lord routed them before Israel, killed them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, chasing them along the road that goes to Beth Horon, and struck them down as far as Ezekah and Makkedah. Verse 10, who killed them and who struck them down? Joshua and the people, or the Lord? Okay, the Lord did. Verse 11, it happened as they fled before Israel and were on the descent of Beth Horon that the Lord cast down great hailstones from heaven on them as far as Ezekah, and they died. There were more who died from the hailstones than those whom the children of Israel killed with the swords. Who started the hailstone? Joshua or God? And who had the higher body count? The warriors, the army of Israel, or God? God. More people died from the hailstones than they actually did from the swords of the Israelite soldiers. Verse 12, then Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. He said in the sight of the Lord, sun, stand still over Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Ajalon. So the sun stood still and moon stopped upon their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven and did not hasten to go down for about a whole day. And there has been no day like that before it and after it, that the Lord heeded the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. Okay, so somebody kind of walk us through this actual battle scene, because this could be confusing. Somebody walk us through this actual battle scene. So we know that how many kings gathered against Gibeon? Verse 5 says how many kings? 5 kings, right? Gibeon as a city and people, were they Israelites in this passage, or were they allies to the Israelites? Say it again. Allies, right? And once they found out 5 kings with their armies were coming, they sent word to Joshua to come help them. Joshua and the army was where, though? Say it again. Starts with a G. Where are they? Gilgal, right? So now Joshua and the army has to come down to where Gibeon is and where the 5 kings are. It says, what type of land are they coming from? Valley, mountain, prairie? Where are they coming from? It said the 5 kings, verse 6. The last part of 6 said they're descending from where? The mountain. So anyone knows anything about battle, that means that they're at a slight advantage. If you're coming down a mountain to a people that are at a base, they really don't have that much place to travel or go, right? So 5 kings in their army are coming down to Gibeon. Joshua's not there yet. So for all intents and purposes, this battle looked like a slaughter coming up. But who intervenes in verse 10? God. Now, God talked to Joshua before he intervened with nature and tells him what in verse 8? And what else? Okay, don't be afraid, because nobody is going to be able to stand up against you. Now, 5 kings, 5 armies. You guys are racing to get there. You're not there yet. But God says to Joshua, don't be afraid, because they won't be able to stand. No one will be able to stand before you. So verse 9, so they come down, marched all night, right? Didn't even rest. Joshua and his men marched all night, and then the battle starts. God gets to work, does some slaughtering, makes some hail come, and more people died from the hail than the sword. Speak about hail. Anyone ever been in a big hailstorm? Don't tell me about little pebbles. Little pebbles can't hurt nothing. Have anybody been in a real hailstorm where after it's over and you come outside is visible damage to crops and to automobiles and to any man-made structure? Anybody? If you have, raise your hand for sure. Let us know. Anybody's seen something like that?
Down south somewhere, it's happened. All the cars, hundreds of cars, all over the road, because there was almost like this big.
Yeah. Big, right? Sometimes they'll say before a tornado, you'll see hail in the Midwest as big as a grapefruit. And for sure, you'll see hail damaged cars. One time when I was looking for a car, this website had all these pictures, but at an angle. And then it said, oh, hail damage. So when I looked up the VIN, they had a picture of the hood. This thing looked like somebody took a golf club and was just smashing, right? So that car had hail damage and people just selling as is. Now, if you look anything in terms of hail coming before tornadoes or any storm, hail that usually is bigger than a golf ball size, especially if it gets to grapefruit size, will for sure kill you. Because what is hail? What is ice, right? So even icicles, period, could kill you, right? You can be working somewhere, icicle can fall down and stab you in the eye. People have died from that. But hail, it's not unusual for hail to kill somebody, right? So if God is hurling hail down at these people, it wouldn't be unusual if more people died from the hail than from the sword, right? Because all the armor in the world is not going to protect you, because even in our modern day, cars are made of metal and hail can damage them, right? So we understand kind of what's happening here. So God sends the hail first. Most of the people are dead. So now, what do you think God's purpose for the hail was? Think of strategy for army. Because were the people outnumbered or not, you think, originally? Because it was 5 kings and 5 armies against 1 city in Joshua. So were they outnumbered, you think, or you think it was maybe even odds? So maybe they were outnumbered, right? Now when the hail comes, maybe this evens the odds a little bit or puts it slightly in the Israelites' favor, right? Because at this point, if more people are dead from the hail than the sword, now we have an interesting turn of events, right? So now when we get to the battle, the physical battle between man and man, before it's God versus man, right? Then Joshua says a prayer to God. And in essence, what is Joshua praying for? I know he's mentioning something about the sun stay here, the moon stay there, but what's he basically saying? Say it again.
He's looking for victory.
Okay, yep, he's looking for victory, looking for a miracle. What else? What in terms of time or watch? What is he asking for? Hey, we need June 29th to last longer than normal, right? We need more time on June 29th so that we can get the job done. Why? Anyone never watch anything, or you can just suppose if you've never been in a situation like that, what would happen if you were fighting in the day, but then all of a sudden night came, now you're fighting in the dark? You think you do the same in battle as day, worse, even? What do you think? Better in the day. At night, I might start stabbing my own people, right? Because I can't see anything, Deb.
Because of God was with Joshua. Therefore, they had to win all this, the 5 kingdoms. Therefore, they need more time. Therefore, he stopped the day.
Right, to make sure the battle is accomplished. Correct. Because you got 5, you're right. You can't just kill 1 or 2 or 3. The other 2 run away, maybe regroup. So your versus 1 in a city is versus 5, right? So the odds are against you. He's asking God to extend the day. Now, for sure, if people could throw this prayer up before Joshua or after and get the same results, people be throwing this all the time. Most people will throw it on the 30th, because what normally happens on the 1st of the month? Rent, mortgage, credit card. So most of us wouldn't do it for spiritual reason. We say, hey, God, June 30th, can you let the sun stay up? Because I got rent tomorrow and I forgot and I went out or I bought something. And now if I can work 16 hours instead of just my normal 8 hours, then if you can also make a miracle where I get time and a half, then I have the extra money I need. Most people would default to some physical purpose, right? But Joshua's purpose was a spiritual purpose, because the whole purpose of this battle was for them to wipe out these kings and keep moving forward to the land that God had promised them, right? It's not a fight that they picked. It wasn't something that they initiated. All of this battle is, in essence, starting because of the journey that God is bringing them on, right? So we understand that. So in essence, what he's asking for is more time, right? So he's asking for the day to be extended So he's asking that the sun will stay up so they can see, right? Very specific prayer, not just that the day would extend and it would be whether God choose if it be day or nighttime. He's asking that the day extends, the daylight extends, right? Let the moon stay wherever it is. You halt the moon for a second, keep the sun up, keep us in this setting of light so that we can battle, right? And then we know it kind of goes off, right, as the story. It kind of interjects in the second half of 13, saying, isn't this written in the book of Jasher? If you have a cross-reference Bible, it may tell you to read 2 Samuel 1:18. It talks about that there. But anyway, so the sun stood still in the midst of the heaven and did not hasten to go down for about a whole day. So they had a whole day of battle. Now let's talk about fatigue, right? The day before, like in the evening time before the day extended, what was Joshua and the men doing the day before? Marching down, right? So fatigue have to be at an all-time high, right? Most of us can't do treadmill 5 minutes, let alone march somewhere for all night. So if they were marching all night, just normal day, right? If you had to walk to work, let's just say whatever job you do, you had to walk all night to get there. Then you got to work and work your normal 8 hours. Could you pray to God and say, let me work 8 more hours, right? I walked all the way to work. I didn't drive, didn't take bus, train. Then I got to work. Even if you just do no manual labor, sitting on the computer, do you think physically, if you walk to your job, you'd be able to work 16 hours, let's just say? No, right? Let alone a fight. Because in essence, when you're in a fight, what are you doing? In a fight for your life. Right? We're not talking about wrestling, boxing, right? We're talking about you have a knife and I have a knife. If I'm not focused on what I'm doing, the way I'm swinging my knife, where you're swinging your knife, what will happen to me? I'll die, right? So now I have to be acute paying attention, right? I can't just be, when we're at work, Facebook, Instagram, getting up for water, right? We're not really all that focused, to be honest. But in a battle, every second you have to be focused. So this is much more than just the day extending, right? This is also fatigue, the ability for them to be stronger than they normally are. Think about Moses. Remember when they were one time as a battle and the Moses arm, oof, my arm getting tired. Let me drop my arm. And when he dropped his arm, what started to happen? The people losing, they were like, wait. And they held his arm up because they're like, listen, you got to start working out because this staff got to stay up. You're going to kill us. So we understand that basic human fatigue sometimes even God intervenes in a miraculous way in that way. Okay, so now we get to this instance. God extends the day. The daylight is there. They do the battle. Long story short, they slaughter the people they need to slaughter. And the story kind of goes on. So now when we have that, why do you think God answered Joshua's prayer with a yes and held the sun from setting like this? Because this impacted a lot of people. People died. So just explain to us as Bible students, why would God do something like this? Because it sounds terrible, right? It sounds miraculous for Joshua and his people, but the longer the light is, the more people die. So why would God answer his prayer? What's the backdrop? Like, walk us through from God's perspective, not from Joshua's perspective. Why would God answer this prayer? Yes, we know God answers all prayers. He could have said no, right? He could have said, next time you ask me, I'll let it extend, right? But he answered it this time with a yes. Why?
Because he told them he already given them into their hands, so that's why he said yes to him.
Okay, so he had gave him a prophecy or telling of the future that, speaking in past tense, that he already delivered these people. Don't be afraid. They won't be able to withstand you. Good. That's a good point. Anybody else? Why did God answer yes to this prayer?
This was also God's command. He wanted to have these kings and their armies destroyed. So the prayer was in accordance to God's plan. So that's why.
Yeah, so God had already wanted this outcome, right? And Joshua's prayer is in accordance to his outcome. So when Jesus says, anything you ask of me, my Father, in whose name? My name, right? He didn't say anything you ask, because then we start saying, good, I need to hit the lotto. I need to get a new car. I need to make sure there's no traffic when I drive to work. It's not like 3 wishes from a genie. The point is, if you ask him Jesus's name, right? When you pray and it's in alignment with what God already wants or is mapping out, the answer is yes. That's the amazing part, right? Now, sometimes you can pray and you may think it's in accordance with what God asks or wants, and he may tell you no. You say, oh man, I thought I was praying for the right thing. This was an outcome that God already wanted. He already said would happen, and Joshua prayed that they would have the time and the strength to carry it out, right? But make sure you focus on the fact that what Joshua was praying for, God already wanted as an outcome. That's the first major thing. The second thing is, why would God want Joshua to kill these people and the armies? But why would Joshua and the armies be instructed or desire from God to kill these people? These 5 kings and their armies. Yes.
Before you go into that, I think one of the reasons God could have delivered these people anyway. He didn't have to have the sun stand still. But it was a huge miracle. And we know from what happened in Jericho that lots of surrounding people are looking at what happened with the Israelites as they move along.
Right.
So I think this is a monumentous miracle, not just for the people of Israel, for them to know to trust God, but also for the people surrounding to realize exactly how powerful the God of the Israelites were.
Right. Look at verse 1 and 2 again, right? At the last part of 1, how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were among them. That they feared how much? Greatly, right? They were afraid. This concept of Gibeon being a great city, being allies, and then in the first half of verse 1, they said that they had utterly destroyed which 2 cities? Ai and Jericho, right? Now, let's go back to the story of Jericho. What happened with that, right? Jericho had what to its advantage? Nowadays, nobody cares because we send drones and blow you up. But they had what? Walls. Anybody that does any medieval fiction or medieval history, walls were a big deal. And if you had walls and your town was on a hill, then it's even better, because how would you got to get up to us? And by the time you're so tired to get up to us, how will you get anything from an incline up over our wall? So unless you starve us out, we could stay in this wall for a long time. So Israel came, right? We don't know what kind of weaponry they had, but they don't have a tank that they could just drive through. So what did Israel start doing every day? Let's say for the first 6 days, what were they doing? Okay, how funny would that be, right? If we're protected by walls, you guys are just marching around the walls. Are we fearful? Any fear in our heart? No, right? We going to work, we doing our thing. I don't even care what these people are doing. But what happened on the 7th day that was different from the 6th? How'd they fall down though? Now trumpets, right? Just in a theory, right? I don't care if you had 500,000 men blowing the trumpet, right? Just the sound of a trumpet. Would I be that fearful of that? I may hear the noise and kind of look up and what's that, but I wouldn't expect that sound from an instrument would make the walls knock down. So if you heard about a battle that was won with marching and instruments, you would be very fearful. Now, it's 2 groups of people that are very superstitious: soldiers and sailors. Soldiers and sailors don't like things spooking them, right? Think about the whole concept of Jonah. Those people were drawing lots to see what? Who God is mad at them, because somebody's God is upset with them, and whoever it is got to go overboard, right? We went on a fishing trip Saturday, and the person on the captain said, no bananas on the boat. That's a nautical folklore, they said. If you have a banana, throw it overboard or leave it. No banana, so we could have a safe trip. Soldiers would hear about other battles, right? Which is how, you know, in history, you hear about great fighters. You would hope, man, I hope that guy is sick. Because if this guy show up, he's going to kill half the army by himself, right? Word would get around. It sounds like these people are being able to do things with some sort of supernatural power, which would make the superstition even worse, because now it seemed like magic, and people do not like magic, right? People feel some way if you start doing things that they cannot explain, right? If they start looking at you and you start floating or glowing in the dark or something, people normally be like, nah, I'm all set. I'm going to go the other way. So to be able to hear, just think about this, even one battle with Jericho. Sister Nadine is right. That fear would be set in you a lot. right? As even though you go to battle because your king said, let's go, reluctantly, you kind of wish you're like, man, I wish I could sit this one out, because if this have any outcome like this Jericho situation, we're doomed, because the people in Jericho stood no chance. They didn't even stand a chance. So that's a good concept, that this battle, this miracle is not only just for Joshua and the people's outcome, because the hail already killed more people. So anything could have happened from God's point of view to get this victory, a victory for Israel. But when the other people see it, that's what it made a big deal. How do we know that? Because Ai and Jericho made a big deal on Gibeon. That was the whole point of 1 and 2, right? Gibeon's people were like, hey, time out. Let's try to link up with these people. Let's become allies. There's another story that we hear of, right? When they were looking and spies and a woman flagged them down. Hey, what was her name? Rahab said, oh, come here, because you guys hang in here and we'll hide you. But when you go and come back and ransack this city, which we know you're going to do, look out for us. Don't kill us. Because she had heard about how they were going from city to city, right? The reputation of what God does for people will get out whether people believe in God or not. That's just how life works, right? Other cities are hearing about what God is doing with and through the children of Israel, city to city to city, right? That's why it's a big deal in our day and time to make sure that we live a life worthy of the calling, so that we are an asset to God's kingdom and not a liability, because your reputation will reach before you physically get there. It'll happen with individuals, families, church bodies, and the whole brotherhood, right? But that's a whole nother topic. So that's a good point. Okay, so once we have this kind of going down, God answers this prayer. The sun stands still. Anyone have anything else about that? Why does God answer this prayer with a yes and in this way, with the sun standing still? Anybody have any more comments on that?
The sun standing still, first of all, is out of the norm. And even, I mean, because God could have really killed them with the hail, right? But that would not have been miraculous in the sight of others. And when you look at the things that God does, he does it so that others can see his power and believe in him. So remember, he's always trying to get someone to believe in him. And what better way to do it than to do it miraculously? Now, the hail would have been just like today, right? If hail came down, we would say, wow, this happened because of the hail. But if something outside of the norm that we couldn't do, right, that we've never seen before, then we would begin, some of us, calling on God and looking for God. So the fact that, I mean, if you can imagine this, I can't imagine that, right? It's almost like when you look at things with the moon and the sun or standing still or turning dark, like when Jesus was crucified, those are things out of the norm. Like no one expects to see that. So to me, it was just another way that when that sun stood still, I mean, it stood still in the midst of heaven. That was an acknowledgement that God was in the midst.
Good. Yeah, very good. Erica?
And also because this is a part of God answering or opening the door for his promise to be fulfilled. And so a lot of times there's small conquests as you go along to whatever the large thing is that God, because I believe that we have promised land eternally, but I think there's a lot of promised lands on earth that God wants all of us individually, collectively as a church to possess. And so this is a part of a larger yes. And he has to say yes to something that would amount to the larger yes that he had promised generations ago.
Yeah, good point, right? This yes is a small battle, and a small battle inside of a huge war. So that's a good point. The other two things to note from those comments are, this is a trick question, right? This was so miraculous. What 2 books was it written in? Think about what I'm asking. This was such a big deal. What 2 books did this make it into? 13 says 1, and then the second book is a trick question. 13 says, what book did this make it to? Jasher. Okay, and then what, as a trick question, other book did it make it to? What book is in your lap? The Bible, right? It's in the Bible, right? This is a big deal. Now, people die from hail all the time, and unless you watch the local news, you're not going to hear about it. but this made it thousands of years, right? This is a big deal, right? The other thing is, on the flip side, let's say we're a part of the 5 army people, right? I don't know what Joshua prayed, do I? I'm just fighting. At what time you think you... What's up? What's up? It's kind of late, no? I mean, at what point you think you just gonna keep swinging to be like, man, what time is it? I think at some point, some people may just be like, look, time out. You ever play tag and you know you about to get tagged? You say, oh, time out, time out. I got a question. What question could you ask? Oh, where's base? No, you it. Right? At some point you say, wait. What is going on? Right? Because you don't have the insight of the prayer. You just experiencing the prayer. You giving all you have. But all you have is not enough. Why? Because they have a very high advantage. It's called the sun not even going down, and these people still fighting as if they just started. So those two dynamics of, wow, this was such a big deal, it reached even to us today, and the other people don't know what's going on in the prayer. Imagine how they feel. So think about that, David.
I think that is one of the greatest strengths that we have as Christians, is the amazing odds that we would have as far as blessings go. Because when people say, why do you believe in God? It might be a personal thing that it would totally make sense to you that out of a miracle that you were saved. And in cases like that, it's not just something that's just like a physical thing that you say, but your life is reflected by, and that is attractive quality in that. Meaning you see somebody succeeding, and the blessings keep on coming to the Christian, and you are more insane as the other kingdom. They were like, how is this possible? I want to know what's happening, because this is not physically possible.
Right.
That's one of those attractive qualities, in that when your life is reflected, the people are already attracted in that way.
Right. So Joshua had a very good advantage, right? He knows the end of the movie before it started. So he has insight that will dictate how he's acting throughout the battle, right? As Christians, you should act a different way throughout the day than lost people, because you already know how the day is going to go. You already know that rain going to fall on just and unjust, so you're not going to go 24 hours without somebody getting on your nerves. You already know that. You know that no temptation will overcome you, that God won't give you a way out. So technically, if you were in tune enough with God, you could have a perfect day. So you know, oh, it's really up to me to just have self-control. That's an advantage, because other people they spend thousands of dollars at therapists trying to help them have self-control. So you know that. You know that even if you did have a bad day, even if you stumble or sin, that if you have the opportunity to live the next day, you're able to do better. And even if you die tonight, you know Jesus' blood cover you, so you going to heaven. These are all things that should change the way you act in different situations, because you already know the total outcome. You know the outcome for the day, and you know the outcome for your entire life, and you know the outcome for all of humanity, right? Those are advantages that the people you interact with every day that are lost, they don't have. So we cannot interact the same way they interact, because those people are lost, like walking around in a dark room. They don't know what they're going to bump into. We walk by faith, not by what? Sight. So this concept of being able to plug in, and when you get into a bad situation, think to yourself, wait a minute, how does this play out for the overall plan of my life and the plan of salvation? That's a good point. So when we look at it that way, it should help us in terms of how we interact throughout the day of knowing. Now, a couple of situations. When Paul was shipwrecked in Acts, remember, Paul told them, hey, if we do this thing, throw this cargo and all these things, nobody will die and get hurt. At first, did they believe him or not? We just did this a few Wednesdays ago. They did it. So they were interacting differently than Paul, because Paul had insight. Back to Jonah, right? They were so frantic, but did Jonah know what was happening? Yeah, Jonah was new. God mad at me, so y'all might as well throw me over. So his interaction was different, right? Jesus in the boat, storm outside. Jesus is asleep. The other people scared. They wake him up. Hey, get up. We scared. Jesus's interaction was different because he knew they would not drown. So it wasn't a big deal to him. So when we look at our lives, even when we face trials and tribulation, sometimes it's better for us to stop and say, wait a minute, no matter what the outcome, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, right? First of all, we not bowing down. So let's just get that out the way. And God could save us. But even if he does not save us, we are still not going to do it, right? That's how we have to be, because bad things are going to happen to all of us every day sometime, right? Major things are going to happen in your life, no matter how old you are, young you are, rich you are, poor you are, good Christian, bad Christian, strong Christian, weak Christian, right? Bad things happen to everybody. But when you're in the midst of that bad thing, if you can stop yourself, right? Because the badness is happening, but what you can dictate is how you interact, right? And you go to the source and say to what? God, let me get through this situation, your will be done, right? And that's when the power kind of comes in. Now, when you're interacting with God that way, 1 Corinthians says it's foolishness to lost people, right? So when you out praying over your food, you should not be worrying about what other people doing or if they pray. You should pray over your food so you don't get sick. I can't be worrying about what somebody else is doing, right? Just like when it's time to go worship on Sunday, you go worship because you worshiping the God who made you and love you. I can't be worrying about if people show up, right? I just hope enough men show up to pass the Lord's Supper. I can't be worrying about other people because I have to be in tune, because I can't make my worship dictated by who's sitting next to me, right? I say, oh, only 10 people showed up, I'm not going to worship next week. Joshua and the army have to be in tune. They can't be worried about Gibeon. They can't be worried about the hail. They can't worry about, man, how many kings coming? They got to be in tune with what verse 8 says. God said, don't be afraid. So Jesus says the same thing, right? In life, you're going to have trials and tribulations, right? He already said that. But lo, be of good cheer. Why? I already overcame this place, right? So don't get bogged down each and every day with this negativity and the things that are happening. Okay, good. Anybody else before we move on? Yep.
In Deuteronomy 20, there was God gave a governing of warfare, and Joshua was under this, and Gibeon too. In verse 11 of Deuteronomy 20, it says, and it shall be that, verse 10, when you go near a city to fight against it, then proclaim and offer of peace to it. And it shall be that if they accept your offer of peace and open to you, then all the people who are found in it shall be placed under a tribute to you and serve you. Now, if the city will not make peace with you, make war against you, then you shall besiege it. And when the Lord your God delivered it into your hands, you shall strike every male in it with the edge of the sword. But the women and the little ones, the livestock and all that is in the city and all its spoils, you shall plunder for yourself, and you shall eat the enemy's plunder with which the Lord your God gives you. Thus you shall go to all the cities which are far from you, which are not of the cities of these nations, but of the cities of these people which the Lord your God gives you as an inheritance, and you shall let nothing that breathes remain alive, but you shall utterly destroy them. The Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jezebites, just as the Lord your God has commanded you, lest they teach you to do according to all their abominations which they have done for their gods, and you shall, and your sins against the Lord, and you sin against the Lord your God. So there's the backdrop. Then you get back over to Joshua. They're marching on. God made two specific things there. One against the cities that's going to be in your path, and a specific group that I want you to annihilate. I don't want nothing to live, simply because they refuse to worship me. Rahab knew and heard of the rumors that came from Joshua's march. I know y'all coming here, you're going to take us out, but save me and my family because we helping you out now. So from Moses' day to Joshua's day to this side of the Jordan, now that they're crossing, there's a specific group of people that will be removed off the face of the earth. And that's that group right here. That promise was made by God, and God wanted it to be taken care of, and Joshua had no choice. Now the Gibeonites asked for a favor, and during that war that during the Deuteronomy 20, Joshua had to abide by that because that came from the Lord. Not everybody is bad. Some people through wars and stuff will act right. You don't have to worry about fighting them no more. Some people will die to death.
Right. Yeah, a couple of things from that passage, right? First of all, think of Jonah, right? Jonah didn't want to go to what town? What city? Oh, I don't want to go there. Why? Why he didn't want to go there? Because he don't like there. The climate's not nice. Why? Why? He didn't like the way they dress. They smell funny. What? There's a reason why he don't want to go there. They were bad. Why? There was a very specific reason why. Way more serious than this. Y'all telling me things why you don't like people. Why did Jonah not like these people? Because of what? What did they do in the past?
God used them to annihilate the northern kingdom.
Oh, I'm not helping those people. They killed some of my family members, right? He got there. Did he have to fight them? No, right? He barely had to preach. The king was like, not only am I sorry, everybody got to be sorry. The animals got to be sorry. Everyone in here got to be sorry, right? So God had a victory. When you get to these towns, God is saying you basically give a very, very simple decree, right? The Romans did it. The Greeks did it. The Persians did it, right? England did it. America do it. It's called get down or lay down. You either getting down with us or we're going to lay you down. Now, some people going to say, I heard about Jericho. I'm going to get down. Other people are going to be like, you're going to have to lay me down. So God is telling them in advance, this is how it's going to go. Now, the thing that God does not give them to, because there's a huge religious population that have this twisted, God did not give them a license to kill. In that scripture there, it says to the place that God promised you. You following a very specific path, city to city, until the promised land. You're not conquering the whole globe, right? Worry about the path I have you on. Let me worry about the rest of the billions of people, right? But people today have that twisted. They want to go on crusades and basically say the same thing. Get down with us or lay down. Who sent you? God. God told me to kill you, right? Think about Saul before he became Paul. He thought he was doing the right thing. What was he doing? Imprisoning and killing, right? But he thought it was what God wanted him to do, saying the same thing, right? Turn away from this abomination or you die. So when we look at it, God is giving them instructions. They sound violent. Not only that, but they had to train because they had to be a part of it, right? God could have cleared the path for them, but he made them go through the motions, go through the battles, have ups and downs, trials and tribulations, because once they got to the promised land, they would appreciate it way more, right? If they just woke up and God said, oh, walk this path, it's going to be nothing but roses and sunshine and gumdrops falling out the sky, they would not have appreciated it the same way. So when we look at this path that God put them on, that's kind of where we're at. Okay, anyone else before we move on? All right, this last question. Have you ever needed to set aside more time for God? In what ways do you feel God can perform miracles in our lives today, similarly to this event, right? So we know from this, hopefully, we're not going to have the conclusion of the study to say, great, tomorrow I'm going to pray that the day don't end so I can get overtime, so I can on Saturday have a third day in the weekend, or I'm having so much fun on my vacation, I never wanted to end. Those are physical, worldly, 3 wishes from a genie type concept, right? When we start talking about from a spiritual aspect in time, right? Because time is, to me, the only real currency, right? Because if you are a billionaire and you are laying flat on your deathbed, all them billions is that of value to you? Billion? What's that going to do? All that's going to do is keep paying doctors that's doing nothing but keeping me alive momentarily. Time is what I need. Now, if I could trade some of them billions for time, even for 5 minutes, billionaires would start offloading money for time. Time is the currency, because if you had more time or you had control over time, you could get more money. Right? That's why if somebody was smart, they say, oh, I don't know what you want, money or time. I'm going to take the time. Because if I have more time, I can get more money. But if I just pay for the more money and Jesus say, oh, tonight your life is demanded of you, all I got is barns filled up, right? I got to see if I could get some more time. Now, think of the 10 Commandments, right? What's a way that God told young people they can have time? Honor your mother and your father, right? So start there. You say, well, I know I'm not going to get enough time because I already skipped that, right? I already skipped that one. But there are some instances where God does promise a better path if you follow some instructions, right? Now, we know physically, right? There's things that you can abstain from in this life, drugs, alcohol, and things like that, that would lengthen your time overall statistically, right? And you know that if you indulge coffee, even sugar, drugs, alcohol, it will have in this world. So we understand from our perspective, or from like a modern day perspective, what ways do you feel God can perform miracles in our lives today similarly to this event? Not exactly the same, but just in a reference where you can see a prayer being asked and it's according to God's will, God doing something miraculous about it, and then being that.
You know, we truly pray into talk about another capacity, but Joshua asked for a miracle based on already that Joshua said, be strong, be courageous, right? So they for something that intersect with God's will, right? Like he was fasting and he's praying for something. So I mean, I pray for certain things, like even every person I talk about, and I have an email that was like, because I believe that this particular task that I was asked to do who's not on campus is that like you're praying for something that lives for that to happen. You know, and I'm using a work example for the simple fact that I think even like work, school, all of that has to do with people. And God will move that your way. People advance you, not only physically, but also spiritually. Because when that right, I know what I'm really, that's the thing we need to do more of. Because God has physically, the people around us can see the testimony, but spirit, you're catapulted into a whole other space because you're now a portion of God's will. That's why I've been working on this land continuously.
Good point. And let's think of was Acts 10, right? Who was Cornelius? Israel. Gentile, right? He was doing what two things? Starts with a P, and giving starts with an A. Two things. Giving alms and praying and giving alms. That's what people who fall away. Oh, I still be giving alms. We don't see you. That's a whole nother. Praying and giving alms. Who heard his prayer? God, not Peter, right? God sent an angel to appear to Peter and told him what? Hey, there's a guy over here praying and giving alms. You got to go minister to him. Think of Ethiopian eunuch, right? He was reading what? All the things he was reading Isaiah, but he was reading about who? Who was reading the desire to understand what he was reading to minister to him. And then all right, Philip asked him what? What was the question Philip asked? You know what you're reading? And the Ethiopian eunuch respond with a slick mouth saying, what? I'm supposed to know what I'm reading unless somebody's going to tell me. What am I, stupid? Right? And that happened that way. So when we think about plant work is a miracle, right? When you start off month, year, quarter, plant work for you as a congregation for the rest of the month, no, right? You just keep doing what you're supposed to do. It'd be like little children. All of y'all who are parents, if you shall know how or why certain things happen, no, right? You want instructions based off you being in authority. You worry about you being a better. You need to worship every Sunday. Let God worry about getting more people. Right? That's the whole thing Paul said. God is doing the increase. You keep planting and watering. Too often we want God to involve. How you going to do that? Don't worry. Sun stands still. About the how, right? Because all of you who are parents, why? And I'm like, this is just the way it is. Now, to a kid, his answer, do you leave saying, oh, thanks, I understand everything now? Nope. God is the same way. Sometimes the why or the how, he not answering that. He going to say, you just worry about you getting there. Don't worry about what I'm doing. I'm just keep doing what I ask you to do. If every seat, their own congregation, the whole brotherhood will grow. But then this congregation worrying about this congregation, this or what y'all doing here, how y'all doing that, or this family worrying about this family. This worry about yourself, right? You still do your evangelism. You still keep the saved, have your, and you be a better Christian working out your own salvation and fear. God will miraculously do in no way. This person will. That person was in the season of their life looking for some specialness, blessing, understanding, and then all of a sudden, wow! You say, "Well, how did you meet?" You think to yourself, "I don't really know how we met." Right? We see divinity of the plan of salvation. Meaning someone could say, if I met y'all a year in this church a year, I never would have been saved. This day, I was in this Bible study on this day, and of all the days I lived up until that point, thousands of days I've decided to be baptized. That's the miracle. Now, what if y'all weren't ready on this? And I wouldn't be saved. Right? That's how life works. You have to be ready, right? This battle was coming. If Joshua didn't have his mind right, he was already being groomed since he had the job, right? Who had the job? Moses. He was already being groomed. If his mind wasn't right on this day, the boy would have lost his life. We got to be ready, the Bible says, when? In season and out of season, because you might miss blessing. Don't miss your blessing tomorrow if we're ready. God have a lot in store for us. Dad and then Sister Nene.
For Bible studies. I had a Bible study today. So I prayed that I and the other person remember, and that person was running. I'll drop out. Stop praying for the time. I think there were times when the Bible study was accepted. I want to be baptized Sunday. My family get here. My this is coming in, and I want to get baptized when they get here. I prayed that their life be sustained. I said, Lord, please don't count this decision against them. Hold off. If that was going to be the guy, I literally prayed those kinds of things. Hold off. Their heart is turned toward you, but they want an audience, and I for that purpose. So I've used these miraculous. I mean, every time I believe it, every time I do that, it had that's happened. I'm saved. I was able to execute the Bible study, and when the person was ready to get baptized, several people have done that. Can I wait till the Sunday? Can I think it's a good idea? Because I'm not God.
Good point. Sister Nadine?
Or supposed to make any kind of a treaty with these people. They were never supposed to do that. It was against the law and the will of God. But once they did, I think it's interesting that God and all those winners, sometimes the associated with are not Christians. But because of us, they are saved or something about their life gets better, right? So just thinking about the kids going to Honduras, on that plane, that child was saved enough that they could drop off the child in Mexico. When we pray for traveling mercies, we never know what we've been saved from. We just know that we get where we're going safe, right? But on many of those planes or on those highways and byways, on those planes and highways and byways, and because we've been praying to God, it's us with so many other people. Sometimes we don't even realize prayers that we've asked for. Sometimes we don't realize just by who we are, children, how much we influence and help them protect others.
Yeah, think of the shipwreck with Paul, right? Those people's lives were only spared because Paul was on there, right? You go somewhere, you pray, you fly, you land, roll stuff on this plane. Who knows what happened? A lot of planes crash. A lot of people get in accidents every day on 95, right? Is on this pathway. That's why God is saying he decided you, right? So that, man, it should have to be this first person was sick, and man, you know how many planes there are no nurse or doctor. God don't work off of coincidence, right? God, we life to sit back and give him the glory. You say, oh, wow, that was amazing. Or that of all the planes, all the instances that somebody was in this position to help this individual at this time is amazing. David?
I always thought I saw the question more in terms of more time, in terms of how we're given time, like right now. That is just the same in relation when you think about it. I think a lot of comments regarding safety comes into play. When it's kind of cynical almost to a point where whenever we think of the world today, it's always to a point where we need to see these big miracles to believe or something of that nature, to see somebody glow, to see somebody fly. It's like, okay, that is unique. That's something I don't see every day. When we look at intrinsic small details, which we cannot see, that's just as bigger of a miracle. Like even when something like when Facebook does something like a timeline of where you were back then, and when you see, that's when you actually get to see a whole portion of your life just in picture form, and just say, how far have I come, whether it be physically or spiritually or what have you. I think in cases like that, that's what we even get to see a fraction of how amazing the miracles can be. But rarely do we really think about instances like this, where small things like that come to play, where you're even changing a lane could mean something else that we got giving it more time. But it's rarely that's the case. In this case, I think the first point that you mentioned about Joshua is so on point, where you know the end of the story, you know what is coming. I think being that mindset is something that is something that's a blessing, that is continually going to give you more time in that regard.
Right. If you think about it just this, sometimes at the end of the day, maybe you've been here or not, I'm not sure, but you may say, God, please let me live, because if I die tonight after what I was doing today, I need some more time. This wasn't one of my better days. So even just give me till tomorrow to try to be better. When we think about God being long suffering, we are where are you any person could be saved the moment they understand right and wrong. Who decided that? It's not like saying, oh, well, I wasn't on any Christian side. How your is gonna in your hands. That's the shot. I could give up some free will because I keep messing things up. But God allow you to look at your life just as a congregation, right? You as the congregation, let's say 7 years, which was you don't get until you're ready. That's how life works, right? People who may be married and we're not having kids. You ever think about that? Instead of always complaining about what you don't have, I don't have a good enough job, I don't have a car. You're not ready for no car. Because God gave you a car now. Who knows? Nobody will see you. Use your mind. That's how God works. So how do I get ready? Be ready in and out of season, and you'll see what God has done for you, right? Brother Jason, all the time about, right? He said, when I start focusing on spiritual, because his mind attests to that. Well, Jason, I knew before. This Jason now, this ain't going in the right way. Jason said, what? Every job I pray for, every increase, every raise I get for that thing, I could this and Jason, this Jason's blessing and that Jason's blessing based off of this way relationship, right? Those of us who look at our lives where you should be, right? Today may have been a bad day, month, year. Let's pray, God, give me some more time if it be thy will, right? If it's your will and we live, I'm going to try this thing over and do a little better. I didn't get it right in your will in July, right? In July 18th. June 3rd, we're going to get into this. Let me have a better rest. I live and your does not return. First, I'm going to start with how I approach each day. I'm not going to be worrying about why and how and what happens for you to interact differently the second half of the year than I have the first year is going to change. And no matter what situation I'm in, I'm going to always try to be positive. If you just that, you would be amazed where your life would be just on that thing.
Okay. Let's trick Joshua. They put on old clothes. When they heard about what Joshua had done in chapter 9, verse 3 to Jericho, and I were craft ambassadors and took old ended. All the bread of their provision was molded. And then they went to Joshua to camp and said to him and to the men of Israel, make a covenant with us. Then the men of Israel said among us, so I'll make a covenant with your servants. And Joshua said this. So they said to him, from a very far country, and your servants have come, Lord, your kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to king of Hezbon, and king of Bash was in Alph. Therefore, our elders and all the inhabitants of our country spoke with you from the journey and go to meet them. They came to Joshua. So when they made a woodwork and stuff like that. They lived with They didn't enough his word to them when they came and said, hey, look, these kings coming to take us out because we had made the treaty help. He had to help them. He had to do to annihilate these people in the fall to get them out of Israel's hair. So he was bound by that. He didn't supposed to make a covenant with who.
Good. All right. Thanks for all of those who are Bible